Welcome to the Power of Optimism presentation. My name is Kayla Burkle, and I'm a wellness program consultant with Mercy Care Business Health Solutions. Optimism can have astonishing effects on how we live our lives and the outcomes we experience. In order to harness the full effects, we have to understand how optimism works, why it's important, and how to use it. The objectives of today are to discuss the history of optimism, the importance of optimism, and how to become more optimistic. Dr. Seligman is a psychologist who first identified a condition called learned helplessness. This is the idea that people can learn to act or behave helplessly in a particular situation, usually after experiencing an inability to avoid the bad situation, even when the person actually has that power to change the bad situation. In layman's terms, this means that someone, in the face of adversity, gives up without trying. This means that we can learn that nothing we do matters. Seligman linked this learning helplessness to depression in humans. He hypothesized that depressed people feel that whatever they do will be useless and that they have no control over their environment. As useful as this theory is for explaining why some people become depressed, it doesn't account for why many people do not become depressed even after experiencing many unpleasant life events. With further study, Seligman incorporated a person's thinking style as a factor determining whether learned helplessness would occur. He suggested that depressed people tended to use more pessimistic explanatory style when thinking about stressful events than did non-depressed people, who tended to be more optimistic. Learned helplessness is that idea that someone in the face of uncontrollable adversity gives up without trying. The idea that we can learn that nothing we do matters. So who is most susceptible to learned helplessness? Pessimists are typically those who are most susceptible to learned helplessness. This is because they succumb to the helplessness easily. They are more likely to be depressed. They give up easier when faced with hardship. They have less resiliency and have poor performance in many areas. Whereas optimist people have that resiliency, and that is the ability to bounce back after hardships. They don't give up when faced with unsolved problems. They perform better. They produce more, especially under pressure. They lead longer, healthier lives and have better resiliency. In the workplace, the optimistic person makes the most of their talents and has success because they persevere rather than giving up when things get hard. At that crucial juncture, when you hit a wall, an optimistic person will persist, while a pessimistic person tends to throw in the towel. Explanatory style is the manner in which we explain the situations and happenings in our lives, such as, why did this happen? And what does this mean? When you use explanatory style, you explain to yourself. So I'm sure you can guess that it begins and ends right up here in our heads. It's all about the way that we think and how we perceive the things we encounter. Our explanatory style matters because when I think that something is the result of a permanent quality of mine, I'll probably give up without trying to change it. But if I think it's because of an action of mine or a temporary situation and that I can change it to generate a different outcome in the future, it is empowering. It's not the situation, it's our thoughts about that situation that matter. And ultimately, our thoughts equal the feelings that we have. So what exactly is pessimism? Pessimism is the tendency to look at a positive situation and think, it will not last long, it will be isolated to this one event or area in my life, it is either the result of another's action or the result of a specific situation. For an example, you get a bonus at work. A pessimist thinks, the permanence. This is the only time that will happen. It's never happened before. It's probably never going to happen again. Pervasiveness. It's not like any other good things will come from it. Personalization. Looks like I'm sure everyone else got just as good of a bonus. The company is doing well. They use a lot of negative and they don't give themselves the credit that they should. Whereas optimism, that is the ability to look at a positive situation and think it will last a long time or be reoccurring. It will affect many areas of my life. It is the result of a good quality in me or the result of some good thing that I've done. An example is you get a bonus at work. The permanence is, this is clearly the start of great things. I'm sure I'll get a raise or get promoted soon too. Pervasiveness. I can pay off some debt with this money. This will lower my stress and have lots of good effects in my life. Personalization. This is because of my exceptional performance. I am an asset to my employer. So when you have optimism, you use the words I will. This is a result of good in me. They see the positive in everything in life. A pessimist person has a tendency to look at a negative situation and think it will last a long time or be reoccurring. It will affect many areas or all areas of my life, and it is the result of a negative permanent quality of mine. For example, you get into a fight with a friend. A pessimist thinks, permanence. This always happens to me. She will never forgive me. Pervasiveness. I'm just not good at maintaining any of my relationships. And personalization. I am a bad person. A pessimist takes all of that negativity on themselves. An optimistic individual has the ability to look at a negative situation and think, it will not last long. It will not affect many areas of my life. It is either not my fault or not the result of a permanent quality of mine. It is the result of a mistake or temporary situation. For example, if you get in a fight with a friend, an optimist thinks the permanence. I'm sure we'll work this out soon. Pervasiveness. I am good at maintaining friendships. I've got a lot of friends to prove it. This one will work out too. Personalization. This didn't happen because I'm a bad person. I just made a mistake and it hurt my friend's feelings. I've learned from this and will do better next time. It's important to note that optimists don't think that they are never at fault. Instead, they view things as only partially their fault or as a result of something that they can change. Maybe you did make a mistake. Maybe you were careless. Maybe you were in a bad mood and lashed out in a hurtful way. None of these mean that you are a bad person, but you will need to make some changes to avoid similar situations in the future. Optimism is so important because there are many benefits that come from being optimistic. Some examples of personal benefits are your actual success. You feel better, you do more, you have that success. Positivity in your lifestyle. Resilience. More positive relationships with personal life, with coworkers, with manager, along with better communication. Some of the health benefits include increased immunity. We're not always stressed. We're not always run down. Our immunity is able to build. We have decreased blood pressure because we don't have that high stress lifestyle, that depression. Hormone regulation and lowering heart risk disease. There are some key health findings about optimism. People with positive outlooks are more creative and better problem solvers in a challenging situation. Positive emotions broaden your sense of possibilities and open your mind, which in turn allows you to build new skills and resources that can provide value in other areas of your life. People with family history of heart disease who also had a positive outlook were 1/3 less likely to have a heart attack or other cardiovascular event within 5 to 25 years than those with a more negative outlook. And positive people from the general population were 13% less likely than their negative counterpartners to have a heart attack or other coronary events. While we often like to think of ourselves as highly rational and logical, researchers have found that the human brain is sometimes too optimistic for its own good. If you were asked to estimate how likely you are to experience divorce, illness, job loss, or an accident, you're likely to underestimate the probability that such events will ever impact your life. This is because your brain has a built-in optimism bias. The phenomenon is also referred to as the illusion of invulnerability, realistic optimism, and a personal fable. This bias leads us to believe that we are less likely to suffer from misfortune and more likely to attain success than reality would suggest. We believe that we will live longer than the average, that our children will be smarter than the average, and that we will be more likely to succeed in life than the average. But by definition, we all can't be above average. But we are also highly motivated to be so optimistic by believing that we are unlikely to fail and more likely to succeed. We have better self-esteem from being optimistic, lower stress levels, overall well-being. It all starts with changing our thoughts. First, you need to identify and notice those thoughts. Many of our thoughts are on the edge of our consciousness, and we think, oh, I'm so clumsy, or oh, I'm so forgetful. You need to evaluate those thoughts for accuracy. Who or what is to blame? We're not going for peaches and cream here, but if we want to generate a more accurate story by thinking the most positively that reality will allow. It's interesting that we even need to learn how to do this with ourselves, isn't it? We don't have any trouble defending ourselves to other people. For example, if someone else, say my spouse, was to give me some criticism, I could think of a dozen reasons why he was wrong. But with our own thoughts, we usually think they're undeniably true, don't we? With thought patterns, there's a crucial difference. Most of us think of our feelings and responses as direct results of an activating event outside of ourselves. In this case, words from a boss. But there's a middle stage. That's your thoughts about yourself. The ABCs of changing thought pattern sequence goes like this. A is for activating events. B is for belief or your thoughts. C is consequence, feelings, and behaviors. So let's take a look at a specific example. A boss reprimands two employees for not completing a project on time. Sue, our pessimist's response is, what does he think I am, a slave? I can't cope with these demands. Mary, our optimist's response is, I goofed and I feel bad about it. But I think I can figure out why this project got behind schedule so it won't happen again. This is the same stimulus, different response. So what made the difference? The difference is part B, your thoughts, and these tend to be hidden from view. Most people don't know it's there, but when you understand how your thoughts about yourself influence your behavior, you can begin to change the way you think. Let's look at how these two employees' responses may have been affected by their thoughts. Sue, who is our pessimist, her activating event was the boss's reprimand. Belief or her thoughts were, I messed up. I probably deserve to be fired. The consequence, which is the feeling and behavior, that response was upset, nervous, defensive, and ready to give up. For Mary, our optimist, her activating event was the boss's reprimand. Her belief or thoughts were, I wish I had finished on schedule, but I didn't. I know I can improve. And the consequence, the feelings and behaviors, are disappointment, but not discouraged, ready to make changes and start again. We all have that inner voice directing our response to events. What's your voice telling you? Think of the last time you felt a strong, unpleasant emotion. What was your thinking rational? Did it help you cope with the stressful event? Can you think of some alternative ways of thinking that might have helped more? This is how we can recognize a thought pattern and how to change it. We also have the ability to take control mentally. Most people who suffer from stress have an inner feeling that they have no control over the events in their life. Sue found the boss's reprimand stressful because she felt that she was inadequate for the task. Mary saw the incident as something she could learn from and improve on. So the next time your stomach starts churning over stressful events, stop and ask yourself what role your thinking plays. So which comes first, happiness or success? Often we wrongly assume that happiness always follows success. How often have you thought, if I just get blank, then I'll be set, or once I achieve blank, I'll be satisfied? Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory proves happiness is essential to building the skills that allow for success. In other words, happiness is both the precursor to success and the result of it. Researchers have noticed that a compounding effect, which is an upward spiral that occurs with happy people. They are happy, so they develop new skills. Those skills lead to new successes, which in results more happiness, and the process repeats itself. There's no doubt that happiness can be the result of achievement, which is like winning a championship or landing a better job or finding someone you love. These things will bring joy and commitment to your life. There was a MAID study done where they took 84 female room attendants working in 7 different hotels. They measured on physiological health variables affected by exercise. Those in the informed group were told that the work they do, cleaning hotel rooms, is good exercise and satisfies the Surgeon General's recommendations for an active lifestyle. Examples of how their work was exercise was proved and given to them. Subjects in the control group were not given this information. Although actual behavior did not change, 4 weeks after intervention, informed groups perceived themselves to be getting significantly more exercise than before. As a result, compared with the control group, they showed a decrease in weight, blood pressure, body fat, waist to hip ratio, and body mass index. This study ultimately changed their way of thinking to a positive outcome, which led to positive health effects. So how can you become more positive and optimistic? A couple things you can try to do throughout the day are write. So almost a gratitude journal. When something negative happens, it never fails to escape our attention. The alarm clock doesn't go off or your car doesn't start, leaving you in a bad mood for the rest of the day. However, how often do you stop and notice all the times your alarm clock did go off or your car did start? To change your focus and thinking, make a conscious effort to start reflecting on all the things that do go right and that you have to be happy about, keeping a gratitude journal each morning or night, listening to all the things that you have to be grateful for. You can practice reframing your mindset to be that positive, optimist person. Build resiliency. You can meditate, find your inner self, or simply smile more. Optimism isn't something that comes naturally to all of us, and you may find that it takes time to change your mindset. In the meantime, Try putting the actions before the feeling and faking a more positive outlook. Studies have found that it is possible to trick yourself into feeling happier by going through the physical emotions. So rather than going with your natural instinct, try smiling and laughing more and speaking in a more positive tone. Acting the way you feel will help you on your way to becoming more optimistic. So much of our reality begins and ends with our thoughts. What we focus on becomes our reality. What a fantastic power to be made aware of. We are not just the product of our surroundings. We are not victims. We are powerful. We can create more positivity by focusing on our thoughts. This inner dialogue becomes a springboard for success and holds untold powers. Click on the link below to watch a very powerful video on the power of a positive mindset. It is only 2.5 minutes long. Remember, change your thoughts and you change the world. Here are some nice resources that we took to create this presentation. There is a book out there called The Happiness Project. It's a very inspiring and powerful book. There are some other resources on the left that you can check out as well. Thank you for attending today's presentation on the power of optimism. If you have any questions concerning this presentation or your wellness program, you can contact us at the email below. Thank you and have a great day.